Are there any other influencing factors that got you into clinical trials and clinical research?
Again, I think a lot of people that enter the clinical trial industry at this point in 2023, a lot of people aren't made aware and they kind of just end up falling into it and then loving it. I'm yet to meet someone that said to me, when I went to university, I wanted to join the clinical trial industry and so I studied XYZ. No, that hasn't happened. It's a lot of pharmacists, pharmacology graduates, biomed graduates like me, people that weren't quite sure what they wanted to do. When I first started my study, I initially chose biomedical science because I made a decision that I would like to work in a lab and find the cure for cancer. Ambitious, but that was why I went into it. And that actually stems from my own personal experience with cancer. So when I was 15, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I underwent a lot of treatment, a lot of intense, quite potent chemotherapy treatment. So my teenage years were quite different to most other 15, 16, 17-year-old girls. And initially I swore black and blue that I was never going to join the healthcare industry. I was like, get me as far away from a hospital as you can. I'm going to do a law degree. And then I think I got a little bit older and I realised that I had such a niche experience and I had a bit of a role to play. I saw other people going through what I went through, some that weren't as fortunate as me to respond to treatment. Some not so lucky. So I thought that this was my opportunity to give back and enter the industry. At that point, I still didn't know about clinical trials, but early on in my degree, I did realise that I wasn't the type of person to work in a lab. Those people that are able to knuckle down for 10, 20 years on end studying this one protein, like hat off to them because that's really, really important. But the way that my brain works and the way that I function, that just wasn't where I was best placed. So that's how I ended up in the clinical trial industry.
That's incredible. So that's the why, or part of the why.
It's the why, It's the why. It's also the why I am the way that I am. I always tell like my colleagues once I get to know them, sometimes my fuse is like I'm very like efficient and I'm patient where I need to be patient. I'm patient with the patients, I think, because I've been where they are, and I have a level of understanding that some people don't. But when it comes to, efficiency and at a work level, I'm like, come on, this needs to move quicker. It's patience. It always kind of connects back to the patients for me. It's a bit of a bomb drop, isn't it, that I had cancer.
Yeah. But it is, it really, really nicely illustrates how important it is to at least be able to empathise with a patient going through a clinical trial, or with a patient that has a lot of interactions with the healthcare system, because no healthcare system is perfect, and I've been fortunate enough that I've never broken a bone. I have had very little interaction with the healthcare system. Same with my immediate family. The only time where I had any real involvement was when my wife delivered our only child, firstborn, and that got really, really, really quite messy, really quite difficult. Plus COVID, and it's almost as if you need to have first-hand knowledge to really get an appreciation for it. You can read, you can talk to people, you can read as much as you want, you can watch videos or whatever, hear stories, but until you're really there, experiencing the difficulties, experiencing the heartache, experiencing the frustration, the anger, the fear, it's just not real. It's very abstract. And since my experience 3 years ago, it's really driven a bit more of a fire within myself to be more efficient and contribute more to the healthcare system in New Zealand in my little way that I can, which is clinical trials at the moment. Because previously it was just a bit of a job. It was just a bit of fun. It was interesting. It was stimulating intellectually, and you're developing a lot of skills along the way. But at the end of the day, the reason why we're doing this, as we've alluded to, is it's for the patient. And if the patient benefits, then everyone else benefits. And I had a guest on a few episodes ago, Dr. Ed Watson from Aotearoa Clinical Trials, and he was fortunate enough that he went on a clinical trial over in the States for a melanoma cancer that he had, and it cured him. And without that happening, we wouldn't have had what is now a really fantastic site, Aotearoa Clinical Trials, which is expanding to all the different hospitals throughout New Zealand. We again, you need that first-hand experience to really drive it in an organic way.
Yeah.
But also on the flip side, it's New Zealand. What I worry about is New Zealand's kind of slipping away from the rest of the world a little bit. In that, I don't know if you've seen the latest Pharmac tobacco. That's
No,
been
I
popping
actually
up.
haven't.
Okay.
Probably can't pass any opinion
Fair
on it
enough.
either.
Yeah. Well, let me. No, but I think we've been sold this kind of fanciful story that Pharmac is cutting edge, and where they invest their money is really fantastic and it's super efficient. But if you look at the numbers, we've had 10% of modern medicines in the last 10 years being approved and funded in New Zealand. And, I mean, that's just a compounding issue. If you don't have access to the standard of care, then a lot of these clinical trials which compare to the standard of care can't come here for the additional cost that they would have to provide or what have you. And then as that you play that out 5, 10, 15 years, and you've lost successive generations of the next medications.
So we're constantly just chasing our tails.
Yeah, and I think we have an opportunity now, maybe with this big furore that has popped up over Pharmac, maybe change things and integrate, the argument around having more clinical trials in New Zealand, but also having more funding for the new medicines, because it is all integrated and we don't operate in strict silos.
Yeah.
It's not like a clinical trial industry is within the healthcare system. It's not sitting outside of it.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be some more collaboration there, I believe.
Yeah.
Even looking at Australia compared to New Zealand, we are a little bit behind in that regard.
Sadly true.
Yeah, and there's obviously there's an unmet need in New Zealand for this. So there just needs to be more opportunity, more companies, more involvement in clinical trials in general. And I guess just back to what you said before about, you don't really understand the importance until you've been kind of put in the shoes or you've had that first-hand experience. It's kind of a bit of a catch-22 as well. You never wish the experience on anyone. It's obviously, it's one end of the spectrum. And yes, whilst it kind of has shaped what I do and how I do it and why I do it, I'm glad that there's not more young. I don't think I've met anyone else my age in this industry that's been like, oh yeah, I'm a cancer survivor, and I'm glad because.
No, you wouldn't wish that on anyone.
No, it was.
But that's your special differentiating factor, which has, like you said, driven the desire for efficiency and driven the career progression. And never resting on your laurels and staying as a CRA for 20 years.